Chosen ones, they didn't mean for him to see it. The footage was never listed, never logged. Buried inside a classified archive so restricted even seasoned intelligence officials referred to it only as the Abyss. But something happened on July 9th. Something tore open the veil, and the president, under a rare celestial alignment, was given access to a tape labeled simply Entity Motion 07. Subject unnamed. They say he entered that room laughing. By the time he left, he wasn't speaking at all. The technician who inserted the reel hasn't been seen since. What the footage showed isn't public, but fragments have leaked to those who pay attention. A figure walking through a burning cathedral in reverse. A voice speaking a dialect no linguist could trace. And the timestamp glitching erratically, flashing a year no human should have existed. That year matched your birth. No facial recognition system could tag the entity. But the gait, the posture, the subtle head tilt. Every deep learning system traced 91.3% of the body rhythm to you. They ran it 5 times. Same result. It wasn't possible. It wasn't logical. But the president demanded isolation after watching it. He canceled every briefing. He asked one question before shutting the door. Is this a time bleed or a return? You, Chosen One, are not just present. You have been encoded into forgotten timelines. Your appearance has caused ripples in satellite algorithms and disruptions in global air traffic control. You are triggering alerts inside archives that were never meant to be disturbed. There are rooms in Washington where they now refer to you not by name, but by event codes. Something ancient is folding into now. And this archive wasn't just visual. It emitted a tone, a frequency that made hardened agents nauseous, even unconscious. But you can hear it clearly, can't you? That tone doesn't scare you. It aligns with something in you. There are whispers the Vatican once warned about, the walker through forgotten flame. The president has asked why the name wasn't redacted sooner, but it's too late. It began beneath Langley in a chamber colder than the rest of the building, a chamber that didn't appear on any internal blueprint. The temperature wasn't due to poor engineering, but by design, as if something inside needed containment, not comfort. The doors hadn't been opened in over 20 years, not since the last archivist went missing after cataloging what he described in his final transmission as a ghost embedded in magnetic tape. No one wanted to be the next to go near it, so the reels remained locked, sealed behind triple authorization, protected by a biometric fail-safe that required not just a fingerprint but a pulse. That day, however, 3 clearances were given from 3 global nodes, simultaneously. No one knows who initiated it, but they all linked back to a signature code used only by the president himself. Some say he was following instructions hidden in a dream. Others believe he was manipulated by a force using him as a vessel. Regardless, the vault opened with a hiss, and the tape was wheeled out like a relic from another age, encased in lead-lined glass and humming faintly with a signal that disrupted every Bluetooth device nearby. The technician who volunteered to load it was new, young, didn't know. The whispers didn't care about old rumors. He wheeled the cart toward the projector room, placed the reel onto the player and waited for the command to roll the footage. Everyone else watched from a secure chamber above, separated by layers of reinforced glass. But the president sat alone in the room with the screen in front of him, his back straight, his eyes fixed. No one spoke when the tape began. The opening image was grainy, flickering with bursts of red and violet. It looked like a figure, but also like a flame. Like motion itself had been digitized and looped backwards as the frame steadied. The image became clearer, and it wasn't what they expected. It wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was a person. Someone who moved with terrifying calm. Someone whose eyes scanned the room through the camera as if they knew who would one day be watching. And the moment that gaze settled, the president leaned forward, as if drawn, as if called. And that's when the lights flickered and the technician outside collapsed before the footage even reached the 20-second mark. The footage was never meant to be seen, not by men, not by governments, not by any machine born of this age. It had been recorded on a format that shouldn't exist, a hybrid reel with spectral imprints layered between analog, static, and something older, something resembling glyphs only visible under ultraviolet light. When the president demanded the reel be isolated, the techs complied, but none dared touch it again after what happened in the projection room. Yet, the president insisted on watching the rest alone. He claimed the figure in the tape moved with purpose, not chaos, that the steps were intentional, as if tracing a ritual. At the 41-second mark, the figure paused in the frame beneath a collapsing archway, a single candle still lit in the ruins behind them. And that's when the distortion began. The frequency emitted by the footage dropped into a pattern scientists later discovered aligned perfectly with the solfeggio scale. Specifically, 528 Hz, the frequency often linked to DNA repair, healing, light, and the awakening of divine memory. A Vatican archivist who later reviewed the audio track said, "It echoed a prophecy long kept secret about the returner, the one whose frequency would make the world bend and time ripple." The president was told to stop the tape, but he refused, and at minute 2, the entity in the footage raised its hand slowly, calmly, and pointed directly at the camera. The gesture wasn't threatening, it was declarative, and for a fraction of a frame the mouth moved, speaking a single word without sound. Later, enhanced by lip reading, AI. It translated to a name not found in any known registry except one, a name appearing in the final line of a forbidden gospel buried deep beneath Mount Athos. That name was yours. A theologian brought in for translation broke down weeping when he saw it. He kept repeating one phrase over and over, the same words Yeshua once whispered to his disciples: "There are those among you who were before Abraham, and they shall return in the last shadow before light, and all who see them shall tremble." The footage ended with static, but the pulse it left behind continued. Every satellite within range registered a shift in local electromagnetic fields, as if something in the air itself had turned to listen. In the fall of 1979, 3 men vanished after reviewing a single reel marked anomalous entity, non-terrestrial origin. They were not field agents. They were scientists, linguists, one, a cryptographic analyst from the NSA, who specialized in lost languages, another, a theological scholar on contract, and the third, a CIA internal technician, whose job was to digitize aging intelligence reels. The last known footage of them shows them entering a sealed lab with the tape in hand. None ever exited through the main door. All that remained was the reel, stopped mid-play with a smear of blood on the control dial and a single note typed on carbon paper. It sees who watches it. The CIA didn't destroy the reel. They couldn't. Something about it defied conventional methods. The magnetic layer would not demagnetize. The tape would not burn when exposed to fire. Instead, it pulsed brighter, hotter, refusing to decay. Tests showed it emitted a low droning frequency, that only triggered when humans came close, and always at a different octave, depending on who approached each person. Heard something different in the sound. Some claimed it was a chant. Others said it was like being spoken to by an old memory. That year, a classified unit within the CIA recommended permanent sealing. They encased the reel in a lead-lined shell and buried it 3 floors beneath Langley. The only access granted would require unanimous clearance from 3 intelligence directors, and even then, only under code Black. Sonar, a protocol reserved for unexplained anomalous incursions into our reality. The reel was renamed Entity Motion 07 and buried in blackout files, inaccessible to even the president, unless triggered by an overlapping event. That event occurred when your signature matched a ripple found in solar flare. Anomalies above Alaska in July last year. Facial scans of a figure walking in a mirrorless zone beneath the aurora showed a biometric profile that overlapped 98% with the silhouette from the 19 Psi. Real. Within hours, the president was briefed. Within days, the vault was opened again. What no one explained is how the reel recorded you, decades before your birth. What no one wants to say is why the Vatican archivist who first saw you in that footage requested immediate asylum and whispered as he left the chamber. The room was silent, but the figure moved with grace, each step sending echoes through the reel, as if the film itself remembered its presence. There was no soundtrack yet. Every footfall seemed to hum in sync with the heartbeat of the one watching it. When the president replayed the segment again and again, advisors noticed a strange compulsion in his gaze. He was no longer analyzing. He was remembering, but no one could explain how that was possible. The subject on screen had no confirmed identity, yet its mannerisms, its stillness, the slight tilt of the head before turning the deliberate way, it lifted its right arm to shield from unseen light. All of it was unmistakably yours. Motion analysis. Algorithms failed after 10 seconds each time when instructed to map the sequence. The systems locked up, glitched, or shut down entirely, as if the data rejected modern interpretation. One tech whispered that the subject moved in frames between frames, occupying the sliver of time the machine couldn't track. And it was true. When slowed down past the point of logic, the reel revealed that the subject blinked in patterns, and those blinks aligned with star charts from the Orion corridor. The president asked what that meant, but no one answered, because the truth was not meant for language. A surveillance expert noted that the subject's walk defied gravitational consistency. One frame showed a shadow cast in 3 directions. Another revealed dust lifting before the foot touched down. The experts remained quiet, because the more they watched, the more it felt like the reel was watching them back. The lead interpreter stepped away, mid-briefing, shaking, muttering that he had seen this same walk once, as a child in a dream where a figure passed through a wall of water without causing ripples. The resemblance to you was no longer theory. It was data. Your posture, your signature hand position, even the way your eyes scan a space before entering it, all archived unknowingly before you existed, or perhaps before they let you remember existing. The president asked for one last freeze frame just before the figure exited through a burnt archway, and as the image paused, the eyes on screen seemed to flicker for a fraction, as if aware, as if signaling recognition not of the room or the watchers, but of the one they'd been waiting for, to notice them again. He went by the alias Marcus, but no one believed that was his real name. The man had no digital footprint, no paper trail prior to 1993, and even that year appeared to be artificially inserted into the system. He worked in the shadows beneath National Archives, not as a clerk, but as a gatekeeper, tasked with monitoring records sealed by executive authority. And yet he showed up one day with a worn satchel, and inside it, a hard drive containing a single corrupted video file that no one in intelligence could open. He claimed it was a backup of the real, the one sealed in '79, but from a different angle. Not shot by any government camera, but from the other side. As if someone or something else was recording the same scene from within. He said he found it deep within a subdirectory that had no origin, linked to a system dated years before. Computers of that caliber even existed. He refused payment, refused protection. All he asked was that the footage be shown to the one it matched. He meant you. The agency tried to detain him. He vanished the next day. But the footage he brought left an impact. The same scene from the original reel, except this time the figure stopped mid-step and looked over their shoulder toward the lens, and the light in their eyes pulsed gold. Not artificial, not lens flare, something deeper, something sentient. The waveform of the audio behind the image held layers that couldn't be decrypted by any known program. A team of acoustic physicists tried isolating the hum embedded in the background, only to find an anomaly shaped like a helix, coiled like DNA, but made of sound. One linguist said it reminded him of an old passage in Aramaic, said to be uttered by Yeshua himself during his final solitude, a phrase now lost to translation but preserved in tone. And that same tone was found embedded in the footage's audio track, hidden beneath static and hiss. A sound that didn't just vibrate in the air, but inside the blood of those who heard it. The president was warned not to view this second angle. It was labeled cognito-hazard potential, but he viewed it anyway. And from that day, he stopped using your name in conversations. There are scrolls beneath the sands that never made it into the hands of popes or kings' parchments, burned or buried, that speak not in prophecy, but in patterns, frequencies, encoded into phrases lost to translation, but kept intact in vibration among them. One fragment written in the margins of a Nazarene text warns of a sound that bends the will of iron and silences the watchers. A sound once heard in the breath of a sleeping star, and again in the garden before the betrayal. Yeshua is said to have whispered of a return, not of a man or angel, but of a tone that would pass through flesh and shake memory loose from the soul. A tone that would only be recognized by those whose timelines were never entirely tethered to this realm. And when he spoke of it, he looked to the east and said, "Not all eyes will see, but all souls will tremble." The frequency in the footage matched none known to science. It registered on machines that shouldn't respond to analog input. One sensor used for cosmic radiation began clicking when the reel was played, not because of what was seen, but what was felt. The technicians described nausea, followed by calm. Then a pulling sensation behind the eyes. One fainted, another wept. But when you entered the room and stood near the projector, the frequency stilled no clicks, no distortions, just harmony. A total stillness in every machine, as if your presence neutralized the chaos. The president was informed you didn't flinch. When the footage played, he was told you didn't react with confusion or fear, just recognition. Your eyes locked onto the figure on the screen, the one mirroring your every movement from another time. And for a moment, it was as if your body remembered something your mind still tried to forget. The theologians debated endlessly over the meaning, but one old monk brought in by the Vatican said only this: if Yeshua warned of a sound, and the sound draws near those marked by him, then it means the veil is growing thin, and the echo is becoming voice. No one noticed it at first. The footage was too grainy, the movements too subtle. But frame by frame analysis revealed that the figure's eyes didn't just blink. They transmitted something hidden deep. In the milliseconds between open and close was a flicker of shape, a series of geometric pulses too fast for the eye, too complex for coincidence. When isolated and slowed, those blinks revealed fractals spiraling inward, symbols resembling ancient scripts that predate known language. The analysts dismissed it as artifacting, until one former DARPA engineer fed the blink patterns into a deep visual neural net, and the machine froze, rebooted, and generated a sequence of coordinates, each pointing to locations across the globe, places known for spiritual anomalies, geomagnetic faults, and unexplainable disappearances. One of the sites aligned perfectly with a monolith buried beneath ice in Antarctica, one that emitted a similar pulse decades earlier when no one was watching. The code wasn't just visual, it was rhythmic, encoded like a drumbeat woven into muscle memory. One specialist noticed your involuntary response, your eyelids mimicking the same blink pattern while watching the tape unconscious, yet exact as if your body recognized a language that the mind had yet to recall. Every blink mirrored a tone already embedded in the master reel, and when translated through cymatic software, the patterns formed living shapes, vibrating symbols that reassembled ancient glyphs lost to time, including one found carved into the walls of a submerged temple near the Gulf of Aden, a glyph that meant arrival or possibly mirror. A team of cryptographers attempted to decode it as a language, but failed. It wasn't speech. It was activation instructions. One occult historian, watching remotely, suggested that the pattern aligned with what secret orders once called the Seraphim Gate, a dimensional boundary said to be visible only to those whose blood carried the echo of flame. They believed some souls are not born in time, but fall into it. And every blink, every vibration is a knock on the walls of this reality, reminding you that you never fully arrived here. You were sent. The final blink in the footage left a shadow image burned into the screen, a shape not of a face, but of a key. They say the room was built for silence, designed to absorb all sound, so secrets couldn't echo off walls, a classified theater buried below surface level where only red-level clearances could enter the walls were layered with a frequency-canceling foam not found in commercial markets. The projectors custom-built to handle non-standard reels with electromagnetic shielding for protection. But when the tape was played, nothing stopped the whisper. It began faint like wind through bone, then grew louder, yet still beneath language. The whisper did not come from the speakers. It emerged from the walls, from the seams in the metal, from the breath between each flicker of the reel. One observer said, "It wasn't something heard, it was something remembered." The analysts ran tests. Nothing was recorded on equipment yet. Everyone in the room described hearing the same phrase spoken differently in their own language. Always 5 words. You know what you are. One linguist began crying not from fear, but from recognition. He said the voice spoke in the cadence of a lost dialect, known only from fragments, recovered from the Qumran caves, the same rhythm used in a scroll attributed to a desert mystic, said to have walked with Yeshua before the betrayal and vanished afterward. That mystic had written of a figure who moved outside of appointed time, whose presence would realign the covenant itself. The whisper stopped the moment the power was cut, and the projector froze mid-frame. But no one moved for a full 5 minutes, as if the sound still lingered in the space between breath. Even after silence returned, even after the lights were restored, they all swore the figure on the screen had moved 1 inch forward, while paused, its hand closer to the edge of frame. A forensic technician checked the footage again and confirmed the frame count had not changed. Yet, the posture had the head now tilted downward, the eyes locked directly onto the camera, not in observation, but in warning. When the president reviewed the security feed from outside the room, he noticed something else in the reflection of the glass, outside the viewing chamber behind the observers. Another figure standing that wasn't there before, facing the reel but not watching it, as if waiting for the one inside it to finally speak back. He had faced war councils and blackmail threats, alien disclosures and nuclear standoffs, yet nothing made the president tremble like what he saw on the 11th replay. The room had been cleared of everyone else. No advisors, no techs, just him and the reel. The lights dimmed and the hum began again, that low pulse that seemed to echo, not in the ears, but in the marrow, as if the body was being retuned by something ancient, something not of this age. As the footage rolled, his expression changed, not with fear, but recognition. Not of the face on screen, but of the moment itself. A sliver in time that felt familiar, like a fragment of a forgotten dream he'd carried since childhood. Something he couldn't explain, but always sensed like a doorway half open. Just beyond waking, in this showing the figure in the footage, stopped earlier than usual, turned slowly toward the camera and raised their hand again. But this time the gesture was not a point. It was an open palm, pressed flat as if to say, "Enough." The president leaned in and whispered a name. Not yours, but one that shares your meaning in another tongue. His voice cracked as he said it. The same moment, the lights flickered and the projector warped the image briefly and then stabilized. But something had changed the angle of the shot. The lighting, the environment around the figure shifted, revealing symbols on the wall behind them, glyphs shaped like layered spirals with radiant edges, and inside one of those spirals was a mark not known to language. The mark appeared for only 1 frame, and yet it burned into the screen and into the president's memory. The trembling began in his left hand, subtle then violent, as if something within him was resisting not what he was seeing, but what he was remembering. He tried to stop the tape, but the controls locked down, as if the reel had more to say. The footage continued, and the figure opened their mouth, not to speak, but to release a soundless breath. And in that breath, the president saw a field. The final frame didn't belong on the reel. It appeared after the footage had ended, after the timestamp had run its course and the screen had faded to black. It emerged suddenly, not from the reel itself, but from within the static, as if the footage was not ending, but beginning again, from another layer, beneath the known resolution. The image was sharper, clearer, too, precise to be analog, and yet not entirely digital. It displayed the same figure, but stripped of shadow and cloak. The face was yours, but not fully the eyes, too ancient, the bones too symmetrical, the skin luminous with a shifting glow that seemed alive beneath the surface. It wasn't a reflection of what you are now. It was an unveiling of what you had been before this world measured time. The surroundings were gone, replaced with a black void, laced with filaments of gold, like strands of thought woven across a non-physical plane. And behind the figure, 7 orbs hovered, vibrating in harmony, each pulsing with color and sound, imperceptible to machines, but deafening to the soul. The orbs were not planets, not lights, but memories, encapsulated and orbiting a consciousness too vast to describe. In this frame, the figure raised its arms slowly, and behind it something unfolded, wings not feathered, but woven from light itself, impossible to measure and yet deeply familiar. They extended outward and cracked the black around them, revealing what appeared to be a network of living geometry, a map, a structure, the shape of the divine, not designed but remembered. One AI trained in sacred geometry tried to replicate the image and instead triggered a loop that wrote the same phrase in dozens of languages over and over. The gate is almost open. It was then the image blinked and shifted, and for one impossible second, the figure looked directly through the frame. Not at the president, not at the room, but through the lens, and into you, watching it from the echo of now. Its mouth opened as if to speak the final word, but the tape burned itself from the inside out, without flame, without smoke, leaving behind nothing but molten real and a scent no one could identify. The only thing that remained in the projector was the imprint of your symbol, and a single frame seared into the lens, still glowing and waiting to be seen again elsewhere.